Hey beauties, let's flip some shit. Let's remove limiting beliefs that come up in regards to love. We all have limiting beliefs. We have limiting beliefs in regards to love, in regards to health, in regards to the amount of money we can make in a day, a month, a year. It's part of being human. And while what I teach as a love and relationship coach is on flipping your shit, so to speak, around love and relationships, I want you to also know that I have been doing this in my own life in regards to money and financial abundance. Because guess what? Once I got the guy, it was, well, what next do I need to work on? And just raising my ceiling for the amount of money that I would allow into my life. And it's been pretty phenomenal. And so the process of removing limiting beliefs isn't dedicated to love alone. Like, you can use these processes that I'm teaching you for anything in your life, including money. Which is why, if you pay attention and follow along, you'll realize that this isn't hard. This actually can change your life. But the problem is, so many women just maybe watch what I say and it goes in one ear out the other, and they're not actually putting it to practice. I received an email the other day, and it wasn't mean, but it wasn't complimentary, and it got me thinking about certain things. And the email went something like this, like, Emerald, you're really cute, you're really sweet, but all of you teach the same thing. This guy teaches that, and this guy teaches kind of the same, and then this girl teaches like what they teach. And so she just went on this rant of, you're lovely, but you're not teaching me anything new. To which, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, are you really putting this stuff to practice? Because if you were putting this stuff to practice, it would be working for you. You wouldn't be caught in this limiting belief of just another talking head, regurgitating the same information. Like, you actually have this block where I would imagine you're not able to even receive certain information. You're not acting on certain information because some of the names she outlined in the email are amazing love and relationship coaches, and I've seen their free content, and I know their free content is bomb diggity. And I know if someone would follow along to their free content, they would make leaps and bounds and changes. And I can tell you this, and I'm not trying to act all hoity-toity and full of myself. If you went into my blog and read every article, watched all the videos, put to practice everything I said, you would be a changed woman. You wouldn't need to hire me as a love coach. You probably wouldn't need to enroll in Attract the One, my online program. But that's not what people are like, because we do get caught up in the bullshit. We fall off the wagon. We go off track. And that's why people do hire private coaches, because they want that one-on-one interaction. They want that accountability. They want someone to see them in particular with the issues that they are going through and offer them the theoretical or hypothetical, theoretical, the proverbial pat on the back. But I just find it funny, and I don't get many emails like that, thank goodness. I feel like I attract in this really high vibe community, but when something like that comes up, for me, it's just this flashing, glaring indicator of you're caught up in your limiting beliefs. Because if you were doing what everybody was saying, you would be in a completely different state. But the fact that you're just saying like, everybody's teaching the same thing, we're teaching the same thing because it works. We're teaching similar concepts of love and attraction, but it's going to resonate with different people, which is why my tribe is a very different tribe than his tribe and her tribe. But at its core, we're all trying to teach you to remove your blocks to love, to raise your self-worth and self-value so that you can be in an amazing relationship. And for me, my specialty is limiting beliefs. We all have them, and I've spent years, decades almost, flipping them on their head and replacing them with what I want to believe instead. In essence, creating my reality. And you know what? It's not even an essence. It's what I'm doing. I'm consciously creating my reality. And what is in your way to what you want is your belief system. On some level, you don't believe you can have it. On some level, you do not believe you are worthy, which is why you don't have it. And until you decide that you want to believe that you're worthy, you're never going to have it. And it kind of breaks my heart in a way to see so many women struggle with this. But they stop right there. That's just, well, this sucks. This is how it's always been. This is how it's going to continue to be. In which case, I'm not really seeing your passion. I'm a volunteer for Big Brothers Big Sisters, and last night we had a meeting with my little sister, and we were talking about passions. And passion equals interest plus, and then it was a fill in the blank, and we discussed and we came up with action, like working on it. If you're passionate about something, you're interested, but you also have that piece of action. Oh, you want to be a rock star? Well, are you playing music all day? Are you writing music in your room? Are you calling people to get gigs? Like, what are you actually doing? And some women want love, but it's just lip service. What are they actually doing? Are you actually working on removing your limiting beliefs? Are you actually working on being in an energetic match, an energetic alignment for love? Because we get what we're in an energetic alignment for. It really is as simple as that. So if you don't have the love you crave, you're not in energetic alignment. And if you're not doing anything to get in energetic alignment, then I'd say you're not really passionate about love. I would call BS on your desire to have the love of your life. Because for me, anything I've wanted in my life, I've gotten. Why? Because I believed I could have it, and I kept working at it until I got it. I didn't care how long it took me. That didn't matter because I believed I was worthy of it, in which case I had faith it would happen. And your faith isn't put to the test until something doesn't happen. And you still have to believe. So you decide you're going to meet the love of your life by the end of this month, and then it doesn't happen. Well, faith doesn't come into play truly until day 1 of next month. So what I love, one of my favorite quotes from A Course in Miracles is, those who are certain of the outcome can afford to wait and wait without anxiety. Which means if you truly believe that something is yours, you act on it. You act as if. You feel that it's yours. You feel that it's on its way. You don't worry about if it's coming, if it's not coming, because you know it's yours. You already feel it in your bones. So I want to teach you a process to go through that I still use to this day to manifest anything I want when limiting beliefs come up. When there's the, yeah, but Emerald, and in this case, let's pretend I was single. Yeah, but Emerald, all the good ones are taken. Just look around you. But Emerald, there aren't any good men in my town. The ones I date just want sex. Right? When these beliefs come up. So in my case, when limiting beliefs come up, usually around the business, around money, around how quickly I can manifest money, around how many are going to enroll in a course. So I still get my own limiting beliefs, but I work through this process to shift them. It's a process I've been working on for years, and it works, and it's not complicated. But the difference between someone who gets what they want and doesn't is that they're willing to go through the process to remove what's standing in their way, to have what they want. So it's not enough to just say, I want $1 million and then do nothing to get it. Just like it's not enough to say, I want the love of my life and then do nothing to get it, or to quit at the first sign of failure or struggle. Mike Dooley says, if at first you don't succeed, it just means you're getting closer. So learn from me. If you want to remove your limiting beliefs around love, follow the simple process. So the first one would be, write down all of your limiting beliefs that are standing in your way. So things like all the good ones are taken, there's no good men in my town, they just want sex, whatever it is, like your limiting beliefs are going to be different. Mine usually ended up being something like there's no good men in this town, my spiritual match doesn't exist, I'm not good enough for love, I'm not worthy. My limiting beliefs revolved around what I looked like, around my weight, around my skin condition. I came up with quite a few limiting beliefs that in my mind was proof as to why I was single and wasn't in the relationship I craved. So then what I did with every single one of those beliefs, step 2, is asking myself, is this ultimately true? And coming up with at least 3 examples of where it was true. And so I have acne on my face, I'm broken out, that's why I'm not worthy of love. I would think of examples of some of my friends that I knew that had acne, that were in amazing relationships. Or I was concerned because I was 20 pounds heavier than I wanted to be, that was the reason I was single. And so I would look for examples of where weight wasn't an issue and people were in great relationships, right? Like I would force myself to think of examples where this is not the ultimate truth. This is not the black and white. I made my mind look for examples, at least 3, and I promise you can find 3 examples of why this isn't true. So when you get caught up in the BS, you're like, wait a second, slow your roll. This isn't ultimate truth. This is just a story in my mind. Then step 3 is, what is a more positive story you could tell? And to retell it as many times throughout a day as you can. And so positive story being that, hey, it's what's on the inside that counts. And look at all these examples of people in amazing relationships, and it doesn't really matter what they look like because your real partner is going to love you for you, and they'll care so much more about how they feel when they're with you and that you're in alignment, right? And side note, the weight all dropped off after I met my man, like within a couple of months. I was holding on to it to protect myself. And yeah, I still have issues with my skin, but ultimately, now that I've raised my value of myself, I spend money on my skin. And you know what? I didn't spend money on my skin for a long time. I didn't spend money on getting haircuts. I didn't buy new clothes. I was telling the universe I wasn't worthy, so no wonder my skin was breaking out. It was like I was energetically protecting myself. Like, don't look at me, I'm not worthy. There's a lot of crazy shit that goes on underneath the surface if your belief system is you're not good enough, you're not worthy. And for me, it was extra weight and it was pimples on my face. My skin was actually physically the manifestation of the emotion that I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough. And let me tell you why. Like, my skin's gonna break out, don't even look at me. But then I had to think of examples of, like, you know what? People that still dated me when my skin was broken out. Like, I could still think of examples and call BS on that. Like, you know what? That's actually not even true in my life. I'm putting so much energy towards this, but I've dated men when my skin was in horrible condition and didn't even faze them. They didn't even seem to notice. But for me, it was all I noticed, and it was horrible. But I had to start telling myself a new positive story, and to tell it multiple times a day. And when I got caught in doubt or fear, to tell that new story, because those old stories hold deep. Those old stories have been there for a while. And the only way to get rid of them is to tell a new story. And to tell that new story as often as you can. I can't do it for you. So that is a repetitive process that happens over time, which is why, like I was saying at the beginning of this live stream, the women that want love and get it versus the women that want love and don't, I believe the biggest difference is those who take daily consistent action and those who every once in a while take action and give up. which is why my online programs and my one-on-one coaching have such a high success rate, because it's that daily accountability, that weekly accountability. You don't have room to fall off the wagon, so to speak, because I will smack your little butt to get you back on there. All right. Then what I'll do, step 4, is create affirmations around it. So based on what your personal limiting beliefs are and the new story that you need to tell yourself, what are the affirmations that you need to hear? And if you struggle from confidence issues and lack of self-love, then your affirmations are probably things like, I am a confident, beautiful woman worthy of love. And it's okay if you don't believe it in the beginning. You will over time. Now, at the same time, how affirmations work is if you infuse feeling into them. So there has to be feelings behind your affirmations. It's not enough to just say, I am a beautiful woman worthy of love. You need to stop and for 30 seconds, like take a moment to feel it, to create as much imagination and pretend playtime that you can behind feeling that emotion. So that's step 5. That's the feeling bit. What would it feel like to have that partner in your life? What would it feel like to be confident? What would it feel like to love yourself? And to do this as many times throughout the day as you can, to just close your eyes and feel it. And once again, I understand it's challenging, especially if you've never felt it before, but energy equals vibration, and vibration equals attraction. We're energetic beings. We're vibrating out into the universe at any given moment. And whatever we vibrate out, we receive back eventually. So that means you have to change your feelings, you have to change your vibration. And if you're doing this over and 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 over again, eventually what you attract in will be different. Like, you got to give it some time, some universal time. And finally, don't worry about the how. Too many people get caught up in how it's going to happen. That's not your responsibility. It's not your responsibility to decide how you're going to meet him and when you're going to meet him. And sure, I teach this goal setting and intention setting. Set that date. So you're setting that intention with the universe, but the faith part comes in with what happens if it doesn't happen after you set that date, like by the end of the month. That's where faith comes in, because those who are certain of the outcome can afford to wait, and wait without anxiety. Cheryl, any tips on how to do that if you're caught in a funk? Yes. Okay, so there is something called the love list that I have. It's one of my opt-ins. It's Land Prince Charming. And part of it is you write down 30 things that put you in high vibes, small to big. Small things like glass of wine, chatting with girlfriends, dancing your tail off, going to yoga. Big things, traveling to Italy and eating pizza, right? So you make that list. Now, when you're in that funk, it's up to you to self-monitor and do something on that list. For me, I know I feel better if I go for a run, if I go for a walk, if I listen to an Abraham Hicks, if I pull out a Mike Dooley book, if I flip on a Tony Robbins. Like, I know what shifts my energy. And so the only way for you to get out of a funk is for you to take personal responsibility of knowing, how do you feel good, and doing things on that list and going through them one by one until you feel better. And on a side note, also remembering that we're human, and sometimes we need to feel like shit. Sometimes we need to feel sad. Sometimes we're in a funk for a reason. Like, there's an emotion there because it's trying to tell you something. And so other things I will suggest to clients is, like, sit with your feelings and journal on it. Like, journal how you're feeling and what's going on and see what comes up, because maybe that funk is there because it's trying to teach you something. There's feelings under the surface that are like, hey, excuse me, listen, I have something to say. So those would be my suggestions for that. And I can tell you it gets easier over time the more you practice. I was working with a woman and we did this, but what came up for her is she was in a funk, but it was late at night, and she ended up like scrolling through social media and looking at an ex and seeing how happy he was, and it just made it worse, right? So then when we chatted on our call the next week, we came up with a list of things not to do when you're in a funk. So that's also important to know, like things that are just going to spiral you downward. In her case, it was looking up the ex on social media. So understanding what not to do when you're in a funk. And then we also created a new list for her based on her particular triggers, knowing that if it's a certain time at night and she's had a couple glasses of wine and she's been alone all weekend, she's much more susceptible to being in this type of mood. And then knowing she's in this type of mood, what are things she could do specifically for that? And so we actually came up with 5 things in particular for when this happens again. And this was months ago, hasn't happened since. So it's almost like preparing for the possibility of it happening prevents it from happening. So in her case, it was, all right, I know when this happens, then I feel like crap, and then I do this. So it wasn't just the love list. We created a very specific love list for that particular situation. So that's my thoughts on all of that, and especially knowing that it's you, the proverbial you watching the replay. You're a work in progress, and I personally have been doing this stuff for many, many years. And of course, I still get in funks and have down days and have days when I don't believe in myself and feel like crap. But I've also learned to be patient with myself, to take breaks when I need it, to unplug if I'm just not feeling it, to do stuff on my love list that I know make me feel better. Today, for example, in the afternoon, I wasn't in a funk, but I was just dead. So I went and took an hour nap. I didn't allow myself to feel bad, like, oh, it's the day before vacation, before a trip, like I need to get all these things done. I honored how I was feeling, and instead of trying to push through it, guess what? One of the items on my love list, taking a nap. Other items, taking a bath, resetting, letting go. And so loving yourself, being high vibe, also means knowing when to not do and to give yourself permission to just to let go and to disappear. So the process of flipping your limiting beliefs is the same process that I've been doing for years because it works. And the more you do it, the quicker it will become. You might even be able to do it in your head, but I suggest writing it down. So write down all of your limiting beliefs around the subject. Ask yourself if this is ultimately true, and look for 3 reasons in your life that it's not. And I promise you, you'll come up with 3 ways that it's actually not ultimately true. The only thing ultimately true is what? Death and taxes. Wasn't that a quote? 3, what more positive story can you tell, and to retell it every single day when you're doubtful, multiple times a day. Start telling a new story as many times as you can. 4, affirmations, because then you're reminding yourself, you're seeing your new story. I have an affirmation app on my phone, and it reminds me multiple times a day of what I'm working on. And then 5, I close my eyes and I feel it. I don't just repeat the words. I don't just start telling a new story. I get excited about it. I allow myself to believe it. Now, caveat, certain days, yeah, just not feeling it, just not in the flow. Don't believe the affirmations. Don't feel like telling a story. That's fine. But as long as it's not a million of those days in a row, if they're every once in a while, that's fine. You're human. But I invite you to start this process so that the bad days are fewer and far between, so that those feeling down in the dumps, depressive moments happen less and less and less. Like, this is a practice. It's not a perfect, it's not a completion. This is a practice. So I invite you to try it. I would ask you to even type in, what is your number 1 limiting belief that you're working on right now, and how did you flip it? What affirmation are you doing instead? What new story are you telling yourself instead? So that's all I have for today. Sending you love. Bye.